You are listening to the So Now It podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 139.
So now what? These three words raced through my mind time and time again during my journey through fertility treatments. I tried desperately to have a child, but never was able. I yearned for a community to join that could understand my struggles. I couldn't find one, so I created one with the So Now What podcast. I love that you found us.
Hello, my beautiful friend. I am back from vacation. Everything worked out perfectly. If you missed all the things I was stressing about during vacation, go back and listen to last week's episode, and you can hear how my brain was totally in a tailspin, freaking out about how I was going to relax on vacation. But I didn't have time to stress about not relaxing on vacation because everything just worked out great. We found tickets to make it to Italy. We found a hotel, although it was a little bit more expensive than we had hoped. We decided to just do it and book a beautiful hotel. We rented a scooter and drove through the Amalfi Coast on this cute little Vespa. If you follow me on social media, you have probably seen my posts all about it. So yes, everything worked out great. The preparation I did that I talked about with you in last week's episode that I was working through with my life coach just had my nervous system in a place to let me know that I was prepared should I freak out. So this week we're going to talk about back to school and all of the things that you are probably seeing right now on social media related to back to school. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that I am teaching a free coaching class. I have not done this before, but I felt really called to do it because there have been so many people who have come to me wanting help with how to navigate comments people make when you tell them that you don't have kids, maybe suggestions that they choose to offer you about things that you should try and that you should adopt and you should relax and things will happen. All these things that come up for you when people ask you, do you have kids? And there's that awkwardness and this lump in your throat that probably comes because you're like, oh my gosh, how do I answer this question? So if this sounds like something that you can benefit from, you can register for free for this class that is taking place on September the 10th at 6 p.m. Central. I will put a link to it right here in the show notes. If you can't access the show notes for some reason, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or you can message me at hi@lanamanikowski.com. I will send you the registration link. If you know that you're busy and can't make it that day and don't want to miss the juiciness that I am going to offer you about how to handle yourself when people ask if you have kids, I will be recording the class and I will send you the replay as long as you're registered. If you don't register for the class, then I have no way to send you the replay. So make sure you get signed up for that ASAP. I can't wait for you to join. All right, so we are going to talk about how to navigate back to school without children. And if you're like many of us who are childless after infertility, this time of year just really stirs up a mix of emotions. Sadness, comparison, self-judgment, all these things that the back to school season brings. When you open your social media and you see this flood of posts showing kids' first day of school, milestone moments, first day of college. I saw someone today who was sending their kid abroad and getting them settled in to their study abroad program in Rome. And while we're so happy for our friends and family, this time can also serve as a painful reminder of a life that you envisioned, but you didn't get. If this resonates with you, I just want to tell you that you're not alone. There's so many emotions that you're probably feeling, and they're all valid. And today I'm going to help you navigate back to school season with a bit more compassion that you might not know how to seek within yourself for yourself. So let's begin with sadness. Maybe you open Facebook, if you're still on Facebook, like an oldster like I am, and you get this lump in your throat and this heaviness in your chest as you scroll through your feed and you see these smiling faces of these cute kids holding up the first day of school signs that talks about what grade they're in, who their teacher is, their favorite color, what they want to be when they grow up. And your thoughts take you to this place of sadness. And I want to acknowledge that it's okay to feel sad about that. It's natural to grieve this life that you thought would be yours. Allow yourself, if you're feeling sadness, to feel sadness instead of pushing it away. There's absolutely no shame that you should be feeling about sadness for the dreams that you had for yourself that did not come through for you. This doesn't mean that you aren't grateful for the life that you're living. It doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. It just means that you're human. And part of being human and part of navigating life after infertility is dealing with this grief and this mourning of what you thought would have been in your life. That's why I got an advanced certification in grief and post-traumatic growth, because I was feeling all this grief and felt like I was mourning something that was never tangible in my life. The type of work that I do with my students helps them acknowledge that grief that you feel and learn how to process it, because you are grieving something that you didn't have. And it is relevant to know that there is a way to process grief when you might be grieving something that was only ever a dream in your life. With that sorrow also often comes self-judgment. And you might start telling yourself that you should be over this by now, that all these years later, your friends from high school now have kids in college, and you should be over feeling sadness that you don't have kids going off to college. Like, you're wrong for feeling jealous. You're wrong for these feelings of bitterness. And you probably are thinking that you should just be happy with your friends and not have any strings attached to seeing a photo or a post about their kids going off to school, and that you should be past this stage in your healing. But I want to remind you that self-judgment only deepens the pain. It's easy to get trapped in this mindset that you're somehow failing for still feeling the weight of your infertility, that emotional weight that is still with you all these years later. And when you compare your lives to those who have become parents, it can magnify those feelings. But I want to tell you that you're not less because you don't have a child. Your worth is not defined by the milestones that you see others posting about. Your life, as it is right this very moment, is valid just as it is. So I want to dig deeper into why comparison leads to such a stronghold this season. And after years of navigating this emotional roller coaster of infertility, you may have spent so much time envisioning your life as a mother. Many of us have thought since we were young that we were going to become moms, and we just always had this idea of what it would feel like to put our kids on the school bus for the first time, or send our kids off to college, or help them navigate rush if they're going through Greek life in college. When your dreams about school pickups and helping with homework and all these things of being part of this community of parents, when that doesn't happen, it leaves a void. And this sneaky little thing called comparison sneaks in, making you feel like your life isn't as valuable because it looks different than others. So culturally, there's just so much pressure that's been tied to this idea that having children is normal. It is part of the progression of life. It's expected of you because you are a woman. So when you don't follow that path, it's hard to feel like you're not missing out. It's hard not to feel like you've stopped short or fallen short. And the result comes comparison. And during back to school season, that comparison hits exceptionally hard because you're seeing your life through the lens of somebody else, and you're living your life so differently than you imagined for yourself. With comparison is that it creates this narrative in your brain that you are incomplete and somehow you're failing because your life doesn't mirror that of family and friends around you. And it will likely make you feel like you're less than. Your brain has been on this autopilot, this constant loop to tell you that your life isn't as good as somebody else's because it does not include children. But the truth is, your worth has never been defined by motherhood, and comparison will only blind you to the beauty and the value that your life has. So, I want to talk about how these comparative thoughts are holding you back. Because as long as you're looking at somebody else and seeing what they have and looking at your life and seeing what you don't have, it's always going to result in this game that has you be the loser. You will never get ahead as long as you are looking at somebody else's life in a way that makes you feel like you are missing out. There is a way to live your life in a fashion that comparison does not steal your joy. And I want you to learn how to become present in your own life and appreciate what you have built. Because you have built something, even though it looks so differently than you thought it would, you can find yourself lost in what could have been. It becomes harder to recognize your own achievements because you're measuring them against a yardstick that does not fit your reality. This is the stuff that we work on in the Thrive After Infertility Mastermind. This is why the students that I work with leave Thrive having these tools to start looking at their life in a way that does not have them feel like they're always falling short. Because comparison is always going to have you stuck in grief. And when you constantly are comparing your life to those who have the children that you yearned for, it's nearly impossible that you'll ever make peace with your reality. You're going to stay tethered to a dream that didn't come true rather than embracing the dreams that you could be cultivating for yourself. And most importantly, comparison creates false narratives of failure. You might start to believe that because you didn't have children, you are inadequate, you're less successful, you're lacking in value. But those thoughts are lies. They are absolute lies that comparison will continue to feed you. They keep you from recognizing this amazing strength and this love and this power that you bring to the world. So this is probably where you're asking, like, where do I go? Like, how do I start breaking free from this cycle of comparison and self-judgment? And it all comes from compassion, something that we as women have a beautiful gift to offer others. And we often don't know how to show compassion for the sadness that you feel and this habit of comparison that you've developed as a way to make sense of your journey. Doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. You've just never known how to do it differently. And I can help you with that. I want you to know that it's okay to acknowledge that this is hard. This feeling that you've been carrying around has had you held back from where you want to go. And even though you've come so far, there are still moments when it feels like everyone else is living this life that you thought you'd have. But what if, instead of judging yourself for having these feelings, you approach them with kindness and curiosity? Instead of asking, why am I still feeling this way? Try asking, what can I do to take care of myself right now? Maybe that means stepping away from social media, limiting conversations about back to school with certain friends or family members. And maybe it means allowing yourself to process your emotions. If that means crying, frustration, whatever it is, there's an ability that you have to just allow yourself to feel the things that you are feeling. Pushing it aside just compounds it. So in those moments when you catch yourself comparing, just try to pause and breathe. Maybe DM me. You know that I will always, always respond to you if you reach out to me. I'll be there for you the best that I can. But remember that your unique journey is yours. It's not a lesser path. It's just different. That's all it is. It's different. And it's okay to be different. And different doesn't mean that you're wrong or you're lacking. And there's so much that you have built in your life that deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated by you. Okay, by you, not somebody else. It's great if somebody else wants to acknowledge and celebrate us, but you have to figure out how to acknowledge and celebrate you, even if it doesn't match the vision that you had when you started your fertility journey. So I want to start by encouraging you to change the narrative that you've told yourself for so long. Replace thoughts like I'm not enough with I am doing my best. Instead of thinking I should be over this by now, remind yourself that you have not been given enough tools to figure out how to process where you've been. That's why I became a certified life coach for women who are childless after infertility, because there was no one out there to help me. And I wanted to change that. And remember that healing does not have a timeline. There is no one who's waiting for you at a finish line to give you a gold medal for healing through this. Healing's a process, and judging yourself for not having healed from your journey that tore your heart into pieces is not going to help you. Recognize that it's human to compare, but those comparisons don't have to define you. So, as we wrap up, I want to remind you that you are beautiful and amazing just as you are. Your life, as it is today, is full of meaning and it's full of purpose. And the sadness that you might be feeling during back to school is real and understandable, but it doesn't have to have you defined forever. Neither does the fact that you don't have a child to post about on social media. One of the fun things that I am doing this week, if you're on Instagram, is doing a back to school challenge. So you'll have to look for it in my stories where you can add a picture of you from, it could be an early childhood school year. It could be at any time in your educational process. Maybe it's a picture from you going back to college, but join my back to school challenge so we can have our Instagram accounts flooded with pictures of us, remembering where we were when we were back to school or in our school years. So giving yourself permission to feel the emotions that you might feel is totally something that I believe will allow yourself to feel acknowledged and give yourself the grace that you deserve. So I love you, and remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you have ever found yourself in conversations with people, or maybe people offering you suggestions about what you should do to become a mom, it's called the Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. You can get your copy free at lanamanikowski.com/things people say.